When an artist makes a pop record with millions of sales, the world pays attention.
But when they do the impossible, best their first album and become an unignorable pop culture icon,
the world has to stop, stare, and put them in the history books. And that's what this video is all about. Hi, I'm Jake.
And I'm Shelby. This year on Deep Dive, we're going to be chronicling some of the most iconic pop culture eras of all time.
And the darkness that surrounds them.
Last year, we dove into the wild world of Miley Cyrus's bangers
and the bizarre world of Lady Gaga's art pop. But today, we are tackling arguably one of the most iconic eras in all of pop music history.
One so massive, it nearly swallowed the star up and made her the permanent blue-haired queen of candy. But Katy's beginnings are more bizarre than any other star we've ever discussed, as it would take place at the corrupt center of the 1980s Pentecostal revival.
Here, Katy would find her love of live music,
but also her first failed record deal.
As a Christian artist by a completely different name,
Katy would have 3 completely failed and scrapped projects
before even one would get released to the world. But when it finally did, Katy Perry launched as the fastest growing pop star of 2008.
And by 2011, achieved world domination. So join us as we tell you the twisted tale of how Katy Perry went from a failed Christian pop singer
to cotton candy clouds and cupcake bras.
Only on Deep Dive.
But first, I have a super exciting announcement. Me and Shelby just posted a new poll on our community page, all about the possibility of a deep dive plushie. And we want to hear from you. So be sure to comment what type of deep dive plushie you want. And we just might make them. Anyway, grab your Bibles and your cupcake bras, because we are about to dive into the Pentecostal revival that Katy Perry would transform into her own teenage dream. Now, to get the full picture of this story, we need to go back to the 1960s, 20 years before Katy Perry was even born. Her parents, Mary Christine Perry and Maurice Keith Hudson, were self-described rebels, befriending psychedelic psychologist Timothy Leary, who advocated for the use of psychedelic drugs. Now, Mary's uncle was a known Hollywood director, even directing the infamous Joan Crawford biopic Mommy Dearest. And Mary herself was a rocker, even dating the musician Jimi Hendrix in the 60s. Now, living freely in Las Vegas, Nevada, Maurice and Mary would connect, and immediately their relationship would flourish. But soon, as Maurice tells the story, a third figure would show up and shake up their entire world, and not only change their relationship, but change their lives forever. That figure being God, as depicted in the Pentecostal Christian religion. Now, as Maurice puts it, God made himself known to him in an apple orchard nearly 50 years ago, and it changed his entire way of thinking. Now, this would be the couple's biggest personality flip, as they went from self-proclaimed LSD dropping scenesters to traveling preachers. For years, they would crisscross the United States, preaching the gospel at the center of the Pentecostal revival of the 1980s. From lively altar calls, speaking in tongues, to being slain in the spirit, Katy's parents conducted it all, touring the Bible Belt time and time again, bringing their lively sermons and intense altar calls to Pentecostals across the nation. That is until they settled in Santa Barbara, California, and founded the Christian Oasis Center, and eventually even their own church, where they currently reside in San Diego. Now, Maurice and Mary would quickly start a family, becoming pregnant with one baby and then another. However, they didn't know it yet, but the second baby would change the entire world and make a bigger impact than they could ever imagine. On October 25th, 1984, a pop star would emerge from the womb, and Maurice and Mary would welcome a very healthy Catherine Elizabeth Hudson into the world. Now, Mary and Maurice both agreed it was best to shelter their 3 children from the evils of the outside world. Katy later explaining that she was denied simple pleasures like Lucky Charms because, quote, luck is from Lucifer, and wasn't allowed to watch any movies except the Sister Act 2. Her mother even made her refer to deviled eggs as angeled eggs. Katy wasn't even allowed to hang out with most of the people she met growing up, as her parents deemed them as having a, quote, connotation with the devil. This would isolate Katy in ways her parents would never understand.
Say hi, Katy. Say, I'm gonna win.
Dad!
Say, I'm gonna win the book reading contest.
I'm gonna win the book creating kindness.
Being a kid in my household consisted of going to a lot of church activities.
Come on, raise your hand. If you're born again, a child of God, you have Jesus Christ as the Lord of your life. You are the sheep, and He is the shepherd.
My upbringing was Pentecostal Christianity. We were slain in the spirit. You know, if you put your hand in there, go down.
Our parents were traveling ministers for many years and still are, and so we would travel with them a lot.
We weren't allowed to eat Lucky Charms because luck is of Lucifer.
I couldn't watch the Smurfs growing up.
I didn't know who Michael Jackson was until I was like 14.
I think Sister Act 2 was the only movie that she was allowed to see. And not Sister Act 1. And I don't know why. You'd have to ask her parents.
I had no idea that other people weren't like how our family was.
Now, as for music, Katy's parents were fully against, quote, secular, non-Christian music, even picketing outside of a Marilyn Manson concert where they handed out leaflets on, quote, how to find God. Katy was only ever allowed to listen to Christian music that was of God. From Richard Mullins to Amy Grant, the Christian stylings of the 1980s would fill the Perry Hudson household. That is, until her parents took off again for more ministry across the United States. Now, as a former pastor's kid, y'all, I just have to say, I think it is really hard to give all your attention to your kids while still being in ministry. Like, much less missionary work or traveling ministry. Ministry is a breeding ground for neglect and, unfortunately, also abuse. And from the ages of 3 to 11, this would be Katy's reality, even further isolating her from kids her own age. Going from church to church as her parents preached their new age contemporary gospel. Her father Maurice adorned with a glittering diamond chain, looking more like Flava Flav than Chris Tomlin, and her mother in a fashion-forward button-up and tasteful length skirt, delivering countless Americans from the quote evils of our culture. During this time, their family was also living paycheck to paycheck, more often than not being unable to make ends meet. Mary and Maurice would turn to food stamps and Meals on Wheels to keep their family fed as they continued their ministry, before settling down in Santa Barbara again when Katy was only 11. Now, as Katy grew up, she would attend Christian schools and camps exclusively, effectively shutting her off from the outside world. Katy's sister Angela absolutely loved singing and would always sing along to her cassette tapes. Katy would always join in and sing along with her, belting out hymns and Christian contemporary records. Soon, Angela actually began going to voice lessons, and shortly after, because Katy also showed such an interest, her parents enrolled her in voice lessons as well, beginning her vocal training at age 9. Now, even though secular music wasn't allowed and Katy's parents were sheltering her to the utmost extent, that didn't mean the outside world couldn't still make it in. See, a lot of the Christian friends Katy had made at various camps and schools weren't as sheltered as she was, often sneaking CDs and playing them with Katy when her parents weren't around. One of these being the classic You Ought to Know by the legendary Alanis Morissette. This song would flip a switch in Katy's brain. She fell in love with music and the songwriting and the lyrics. It all made sense to her. From the ages of 9 to 17, Katy would use her talents for her parents' ministry, singing in the church choir every Sunday, developing her skills even further. It was quickly evident Katy had a stage presence and performance capability like no other. For her 13th birthday, Katy got a guitar from her parents, and from then on, she began publicly performing songs that she wrote. Now, during this time, she sort of began straying away from the Pentecostal religion altogether, discovering the life of a quote, typical California girl. And this would be more foreshadowing than she would ever know. She began skating and surfing and actually transformed into a complete tomboy, strumming her guitar and skating all over California. Thus, when she was 15 in 1999, during her first year of high school, Katy completed her GED and dropped out in pursuit of a full-time career in music. This decision would change the entire course of Katy Perry's life.
This, me playing and writing and stuff, I do this for me and God. I do this as a release. I do this as a spiritual growth, actually. I'm a pretty bold person when it comes to my faith and don't really care what other people think about me. I don't want to offend people, but I think honestly, people would love for somebody to, rip the nice pretty bow off of Christianity and just tell it like it is.
Now, despite Katy beginning to stray away from the church, she would still continue to sing for her parents' ministry, as well as take voice lessons to develop her craft. This is when Katy would be discovered by Christian contemporary artist and simultaneous LGBTQ activist Jennifer Knapp. When Jennifer heard Katy's deep baritone lows and her highs sweeter than candy, she knew she was hearing a star in the making. Katy not only had the innate ability to perform, but she was bestowed with some major pipes. So Jennifer would quickly whisk a teenage Katy away to Nashville, Tennessee, to hone in on her songwriting abilities and begin cultivating her music career. This is where Katy learned how to play guitar, write songs, and even began recording her own demos. It didn't take long before she caught the attention of industry giant Pamplin Music, who wanted to sign her to their subsidiary, Red Hill Records, which was directly aimed at the Christian contemporary youth demographic. Now, it's important to note that even though Pamplin was among the top 5 Christian record labels, it still struggled to keep its doors open. In fact, Katy was the final artist they attempted to launch.
And everyone thinks I'm like superstar and I, like rock star. But that's not how I am at all. Like, I'm just some little kid from California who plays the guitar and sings. I have lots of songs to write about. Lots of things to write about. I have like this writer's block that I've had for like 6 months. It really stinks. You know when you hate your parents so much you miss them?
Pretty special, you know that.
In 2001, at just 17 years old, Katy would get in the studio at Red Hill Records, recording her first ever album, self-titled Katy Hudson, which released on March 6th of 2001.
I understand that you write all your own songs.
Yes.
Is this true?
This is very true. It's the biggest part of what I do, almost.
And tell me, is there like a theme that you like to write about?
No, I just like to write about my relationship with Christ and all the pit holes that I have encountered.
And say you just recorded your first album, is that right, Katy? What's it called?
Yes, besides a demo that nobody will ever hear.
Probably on purpose, right? And,
Right.
and your album comes out March
6th. It's
Okay.
like 2 weeks, I think. My sister called me up. She's all, Katy, your album comes out in 2 weeks. I'm like, really?
Unfortunately, Katy was essentially set up to fail with this album, as her label Red Hill Records went bankrupt before it could even release. Because of this, there was no formal marketing or promotion to push album sales. Katy would even go on tour with Phil Joel and do everything in her power to promote her debut album, but despite her best efforts, the record only sold roughly 200 copies. Shortly after, the label Pamplin Records would fold entirely due to lack of profitability and lack of projected profitability. Then Katy Hudson may have had a disastrous first release in the gospel world, and many people in her position probably would have hung up their hat and given up. But not Katy. That Alanis Morissette song still sang beautifully in her mind. She knew what she really wanted in life. By this point, Katy had discovered more of the world. She was ready to rebel against her parents and was determined to forge her own path outside of the Christian bubble that she grew up in.
Everyone, this is Glenn Fowler. He is responsible basically for my existence. And I met him when I was 17. I played him a song and then he took me under his wing. And that's basically why I'm here this evening. So, Glenn Ballard, everyone.
In 2003, Katy made the huge decision to ditch Christian music and the name Katy Hudson altogether in favor of working with music legend Glenn Ballard, the genius producer behind Katy's favorite song, You Oughta Know by Alanis Morissette. Katy moved across the country from Nashville to Los Angeles to pursue her dream, and it felt more real this time than ever. Katy wasn't pursuing her parents' dream. This time, she was pursuing her own.
I think it took a little bit of time for my parents to adjust when I stopped singing gospel.
Next question though, what happens when your daughter is on MTV? I don't watch it. You wouldn't watch me, Mom? No. Right.
Oh, you wouldn't.
Katy, I'm not gonna watch you if you got half your clothes off.
She ain't gonna have half her clothes off. Relax.
I feel like I wasn't ever allowed to even think for myself.
and having any kind of feminist live on your own independent spirit is just of the devil. And I like, all of a sudden my heart wants to do all kinds of things. I want to travel and experience other things outside of my comfort zone.
I guess I'm just probably going through a rebel phase, I don't know. So she moved to LA, and I was a little bit scared for her because to me back then, LA was a huge, scary, big city. I feel like I'm a new person, and especially being, kind of on my own.
She was experiencing everything for the first time. Her first club, her first encounter with gay people. It was always something new, and it came through in her music.
I'm living life for the first time, so it's exciting.
I'm Mark Hunter. I'm known as a nightlife photographer. I'm out capturing people, and I started seeing Katy coming out. She made you feel like happy. There was just like a unique charisma that you don't see that much.
Performing any chance she got in hotel cafes and various public spaces, Katy would belt out her songs that she wrote, hoping her voice would land upon the right person's ears. The next year, naturally, she would sign to Glenn's label Java Records, alongside luminaries such as Billy Idol and Lisa Marie Presley. Feeling like the stars were finally aligning, following the footsteps of the great Alanis Morissette, nothing ever felt more right to a teenaged Katy Perry, whom, yes, had reverted back to Catherine to avoid confusion with model Katy Hudson. Katy again embarked on a new record, this time with the talented Glenn Ballard, set to be released as her new stage name, Katy Perry, in March of 2005.
I think it was probably 2001. Someone knocked on my door, and I said, "Hello, what do you want? Are you a writer?" She said, "Yes." I said, "You want to play me a song?" She said, "Yes." Bingo, 2 great answers. Opened the guitar case, and she played a song for me, and it blew me away. Right away, I said, "I want to sign you. You're it." People don't knock on my door every day. The last time someone did that, honestly, it was Alanis Morissette. 5 years that she was with me, she wrote over 100 songs. She was writing, singing, recording, and developing this vocabulary as a writer. She knew how to write a song that communicated all kinds of things.
What was your first impression of her?
Talent. I mean, I was making another record in a control room in my studio, and she came in and opened her guitar case. I never met her, and within 2 minutes she was playing me a song that she had written, and I was knocked out. I got to tell you, that was like, stop the press. Who is this?
Right.
What's your name again? And so it's all about that. I mean, if that hadn't happened, it wouldn't have mattered,
Yeah. So you're not at all surprised that you're here today watching a Katy Perry movie?
No, I'm thrilled, but
yeah.
I mean, if talent is to be the predicate for greatness, here we are. This greatness is based on talent.
However, Java would be dropped from their parent company that same year, and thus the record label would crumble, sending their various artists to other labels or leaving them completely unsigned. Katy's album she was working on with Glenn would be entirely scrapped, only months before it was set to release. All that hard work down the drain. Now, because Katy was a new talent that Glenn had been mentoring for the previous years, he actually had some of the most stock in her career from Java Records. Thus, he introduced her to A&R executive Tim Devine at Columbia Records. Now, Glenn believing in Katy so intently is what she attributes her entire career to. When everyone else gave up, Glenn was there to pick up the pieces.
She had everything it took, but I couldn't get the label to pay attention to that. So we went to Columbia at that point.
Now, Tim loved what Katy brought him and signed her to Columbia Records for her 3rd attempt at a solo debut. And this would prove to be one of the strangest and most elusive projects to date, as Katy was introduced to such visionaries as Cara DioGuardi, Max Martin, The Matrix, and even the controversial and infamous Dr. Luke.
I was approached by one of the senior executives at Columbia. He showed me a music video that she had shot with Glenn Ballard. It was for a song called The Box. And I just fell in love with her. And when we first signed Katy, she had been kind of kicking around for a couple of years. She had been signed to a gospel label in Nashville, which failed. She had been on Island Def Jam, dropped, and now she was kind of banking on this deal with Columbia Records to pan out.
So here's how Katy Perry got my record deal. Well, we get a call from Jason, who's now at Virgin. And he's like, hey, let's give it a shot. Let's give you a development deal. Just work with The Matrix. They're this dream team of people who came together with Katy Perry as a team, and they would produce these singles as demos, I guess, that they hoped would hit. You know, they were the kind of pop producers that were just icons. They said to me, these are the songs that we already have that we're willing to work with you on. And one of them was a track with Katy Perry as the demo singer. So the song is called Just a Song. I go to dinner with my friend Jody, who's a songwriter, the performing artist Micah, and Katy Perry. I get introduced. Her and Micah seem to be really hitting it off, or they're friends. I'm excited because I know that she's the person that recorded Just a Song. I was like, Katy, I just want to say hello. And I want to tell you that I think you're so awesome. I just love your voice so much. Now, keep in mind, she didn't have a deal. She was like bouncing around from place to place, and from what I was told, she was really, really looking for a deal. But I didn't care about that because, I didn't see it as a competitive thing. I just appreciated her voice so much. So I told her, hey, I have a development deal with Jason Wong. I know that you might have known him or something like that, right? I was given this song by The Matrix, and I put my voice on it, and I'm just really, really excited. Well, a couple months later, not even a month really, I was told that I didn't have a deal. And that Katy Perry did.
Now, her Columbia debut would be titled Fingerprints, and she would begin work with the various producers and songwriters. In fact, Tim Devine suggested Katy and The Matrix form a band together, subsequently called The Matrix.
There was some concern about how to give her a shot in the market and how to give her a point of entry. So they came up with this idea to hook her up with these producers called The Matrix.
This is The Matrix. The genius producers have finally become a band.
At the time, they had just had huge success with Britney Spears and Avril Lavigne. So it was a perfect opportunity for her to get some traction.
Right away, they had A&R people telling her who she should be, who she needed to be. One was Avril Lavigne.
Really go for it. You're going to be really angry on this chorus. I'm Avril Lavigne!
And she was kind of just still in that phase of soaking everything in. But after a while, it just started to get annoying. This is people talking about she should be the next Kelly Clarkson. She should be more like Ashley Simpson, and the whole time she just kept saying, I just want to be the first Katy Perry. I don't want to be the next anybody. I just want to be the first Katy.
She was being asked to go write with these people. She hated the music. Katy had a very different vision.
Whatever happened to just writing a really good song and letting it be a great song?
Listen, I have
having emotion.
two lovely albums of my own sitting in top drawers in my bedroom, gathering dust right now. It was full of wonderful, poetic, sweet material that no one gave a about.
Now, The Matrix without Katy were already a huge deal. They were coming off hits like Let Go by Avril Lavigne and Toxic by Britney Spears. Needless to say, the years this project was being created, they were the talk of the town. This project with Katy and The Matrix made it so far as to be fully written, recorded, and produced. But the group split and the project ended due to creative differences. Now, by autumn of 2006, Katy's debut album Fingerprints was written, recorded, and fully mastered, ready for a 2007 promo and rollout.
The label, they didn't understand her clothes, they didn't understand her personality, and they didn't understand her point of view.
It wasn't a good representation of who she was, and it fell apart.
Sonia, I'm going to lay it on the line to you. It doesn't feel right, and we're sick of it doing this record.
The record wasn't going to come out, and she was signed to the record company, and nothing was happening. And I remember one of the heads of the record company saying, we really can't drop her because she'll probably go sign somewhere else and become a big star. We just can't have that. I just thought they should just let her go. It was like holding somebody hostage. I cared about her too much as a person to think that somebody could actually just crush this girl's life. They just crush her dreams for their own ego. And I just remember thinking, I can't work here anymore.
However, Columbia would drop Katy at the end of 2006 altogether, canceling Fingerprints entirely. Some of the songs on that project went to different artists, like I Do Not Hook Up by Kelly Clarkson, and actually my personal favorite Selena Gomez song she's ever made, Rock God. Seriously, y'all, I highly suggest you go listen to that because it's insane. Now, after being dropped from her label and her third album's cancellation, Katy felt like she was losing steam and hope.
It was probably her most desperate moment.
I had no money. My car was impounded twice. Nothing was going my way. People saw me as damaged goods.
I think the lowest point in her life was when she called me, her 16-year-old brother, and asked me for money. Like, sorry, I don't even have enough money for myself.
I was feeling lost. I would ask myself, what happened to that 13-year-old girl that was playing the blue guitar? Is she still there? Am I still that person?
She had been through 3 names, 3 records, and 3 labels. Thus, she signed to an independent label called Taxi Records, and actually saw some airplay, having an original song she produced with Glenn Ballard make it into the movie The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. She sang backup for Mick Jagger, she performed with P.O.D. as a background vocalist on The Tonight Show, and even played the video vixen for her boyfriend at the time, Travie McCoy's band Gym Class Heroes song, Cupid's Chokehold. Katy had tried and failed to release a main pop debut and been blocked numerous times, but multiple angels were looking down on her. Well, rather a publicity executive at Columbia named Angelica.
They're not gonna do anything with her. Let's see if we can get her over to Capitol. So I stole all the files. I stole all the Katy files. I just grabbed them and I put them under my arm and I just snuck out.
Angelica took all the Katy files and said, well, if Columbia's not gonna do something with this star, then I am. She legitimately took Katy's files and demos and brought them to Virgin Records chairman Jason Fromm. Now, Chris Antonuke, who had one of his main career breaks rebirthing the career of Katy Perry at Virgin and Capitol, is quoted saying, Jason Flom invited me to the Grammy Awards in 2006. Jason introduced me to Angelica Cobb Baylor, a longtime publicity executive at Columbia Records. She was telling me about this girl named Katy Perry that was signed to Columbia. I said, who's Katy Perry? And she said, she's a singer-songwriter. She's incredible. She used to be a Christian singer and Columbia doesn't really know what to do with her, and they are about to drop her. Chris said, well, send me some music. She sent Chris a DVD and 3 demos. He put in the DVD, saying, quote, it was an independent, low-budget video of a song called Simple, an early song she did with Glenn Ballard from the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. For some reason, I thought, oh my god, she is a superstar. She reminded me of Alanis Morissette. I listened to 2 other songs on the demo. One was Waking Up in Vegas, and when I heard that, I thought, this is a #1 record. I took the demo and we went to Jason Flom's office and said, oh my god, I've found the next Avril Lavigne meets Alanis Morissette. When I played him the demos, he wasn't sure if it was good enough. To be honest, he didn't really get it. More importantly though, he had heard about her through the years, and this wasn't the first time Katy Perry had been dropped. She'd been dropped before from Island Def Jam, and this sent off warning signs to Jason Flom. But because Chris was so passionate about it, Jason actually decided to come to a showcase in LA at the legendary Viper Room. Now, according to Chris, quote, the showcase wasn't that good to be honest, although I saw the star talent in her. I'm so passionate about it that every single week I'm beating him up, trying to convince him to sign her, saying, Jason, we'll find the record, we'll develop her, we'll figure it out. There is something special about her. I know she is a star. Who cares that she was dropped? Now, according to Chris, Angelica Cobb is helping fight the good fight because she's about to leave Columbia and get hired by Virgin as a senior publicity executive, and Katy was her baby. Quote, we were determined to get this deal through.
I hired Angelica Cobb to run our publicity department. She said to me, you've got to meet this girl, Katy Perry. I think she's a real star. You should get together with her.
Hello. I bet you're wondering where I'm at right now. I am in the office of Jason Flom. Act professional. Act professional. The kiddos. I think someone's coming.
So Katy Perry had multiple music executives moving behind the scenes their actual careers and job paths just to sign her individually. That many people believed in her. Now, Chris is quoted saying, I don't know what happened, but one Sunday, almost 7 weeks later, Jason emails me, it's great. What are we waiting for? Let's sign the girl. So we talked to Jeff Kempler, who does all our deals at Virgin, and we offered her a deal.
When an artist who's destined for stardom walks in a room, they walk and talk and wear their clothes differently than normal people do. And I was immediately taken by her presence.
Soon after that, the skies opened up. Capitol believed in her vision,
and they had called saying they would sign Katy.
Now, Katy Perry was signed to Capitol Records only 4 months after being dropped by Columbia, and her Capitol rebirth with Chris Anacue was immediately underway. Now, this was a very slow career introduction, taking 14 to 18 months to really fully debut Katy to the world. However, internally, Capitol Records was buzzing. Chris would have Katy play for anyone who would listen. There would be 5 to 9 interns gathered around Katy, hearing her play one of the boys' tracks on her acoustic guitar, and she quickly became a company favorite. During all of this, Katy was actively working on her 4th attempt at a project, and 3rd attempt at a secular album release. This time, it would be called One of the Boys, titled after Katy's tomboy era when she was younger. Songs like Fingerprints, a pop rock ballad that was the initial title track for her canceled record, would be ported over to this new project. However, one day in the early stages of creating One of the Boys, Jason Flom was in a meeting with Dr. Luke, and he played him Katy Perry. Now, Dr. Luke had actually already worked with Katy Perry back at Columbia Records, but Katy had been dropped since then. Jason needed to convince Dr. Luke to get back in the studio with Katy and cut together some new records, and he did just that. Dr. Luke agreeing and sitting down with Katy to record some of the biggest hits of her entire career. From Hot and Cold, a pop rock track that would take the world by storm just a few years later, and even recording a single called You're So Gay to introduce her to the world, releasing it on an EP of the same name and doing her first ever MTV Unplugged session. Chris Anacue is quoted saying, "We put out You're So Gay as a single as a kind of introduction because we thought we'd have to build her story all over again. It was kind of a novelty song. We never had plans to go to radio, we just wanted to put it out online and see what the attraction was. We shot a low budget video and the response was great. We didn't expect to sell 50,000 EPs, and we sure didn't. We only sold a few thousand. In my opinion, it did well in terms of building a press story, but because people didn't run to iTunes to buy the EP, some executives in the company started backpedaling. However, the song would hit some of the mainstream and calm some of those executives' nerves when Madonna would highly publicize the song. She declared You're So Gay as her favorite song on The Tonight Show."
Madonna, you're on the air with John Jane Rich.
I'm exhausted.
Do you have something geeky on your iPod that you love that you wouldn't admit to many people? Yeah, something that's not yours, but just kind of out of context for you.
Well, I have a favorite song right now.
What's that?
It's called You're So Gay and You Don't Even Like Boys.
That sounds awesome.
That might be a song
Have
about
you
me.
heard it?
Is it?
You have to hear it.
Is it a children's
song? It's by an artist called Katy Perry.
Let me look it up.
Look it up, Obi. See if you can find it.
Oh, it's so good. Check it out on iTunes.
I just wanted to say thank you for everybody who watched the You're So Gay video. I really appreciate it. We're almost at 500,000 hits in how many days?
2.5 days.
It's Madonna, and this woman who essentially every girl has her poster in their room their whole life, and you fall asleep looking at a poster of Madonna, and you wake up looking at a poster of Madonna, and then all of a sudden Madonna knows your first and last name, and you're like, holy crap, you don't expect it. And she definitely, gave me a nice compliment in the beginning of my career, and maybe she doesn't even remember who I am now, but it was very nice. And I would think that Madonna's more territorial than that. Come on, honey, you don't shine the light on any other female girl, but she's cool.
This was the start of Katy Perry as the world knows her today, and You're So Gay was only the beginning. Katy only had 2 days left to finish her record, One of the Boys, and she remembered waking up one day in 2006 and having the idea and vision of an inexperienced girl kissing another girl, saying, quote, "The chorus actually popped into my head when I woke up. It was one of those moments where you hear artists talking about songs they get in dreams or in the middle of the night. I was like, wow, what an interesting subject matter to kind of pop into my head. And I didn't do anything with it for about a year and a half. Then all of a sudden, at the very end of making my album, I literally had 2 days left in the recording studio with my producer, Dr. Luke. We just said, we're gonna finish it. And it's so catchy because it won't get out of our heads. And thus, the dramatic, booming single, I Kissed a Girl, was born. Dr. Luke and Benny Blanco finished up the production on the records. And now, her first single and album was finished and ready to be released to the world. I Kissed a Girl would be a sparkly, more commercial version of her first hit, You're So Gay. Katy would make the dramatic transformation of Christian pop singer to the edgiest debut of 2008 in a matter of 6 years. And needless to say, Hollywood, Katy, LGBTQ+ activists and critics alike, and especially her parents, were not ready for the gay anthem that was about to sweep the entire nation.
when I wrote I Kissed a Girl, it wasn't like I called my parents and was like, guys, guess what this song I wrote? It was about to come out on the radio. And I remember that. And I was like, okay, well, my parents are going to find out. I don't live under their roof anymore, and they don't pay my rent. So I asked my older sister, I was like, maybe you want to give them the heads up so they don't like have a heart attack in the car as they're driving home. Even though it was very challenging for them, you know, and I still push, and they still pray.
And now they're thankful you kissed a girl, probably.
Honestly, if it came down to it, yes.
When Katy decided that I Kissed a Girl was going to be her first single, I said, have you told mom and dad? And she said, no, but can you? I went, oh, Katy.
I was a little concerned, because I thought my ministry after 30-something years is over. But you know what? Never had a problem.
I think people love the idea of a good girl gone bad. And they think my parents have disowned me, but that's not the story at all.
Great filler. What's your favorite song, I Kissed a Girl?
No.
You just love her. No matter what she was singing about or no matter what she was doing, she's just a blessing.
I have been on a fast rocket. People think that she was an overnight success. She really wasn't. You know, she was working at it her whole life.
In an interview, A&R rep Chris Inoku is quoted describing the initial pushback they received when trying to release I Kissed a Girl. Chris said that when he heard her play the song on her guitar, he knew it was incredible and would be a career record. However, record executives did not feel similarly. When he started playing it to people in the office, an influential senior exec said it sounded like an international club track. Others said it was never going to get played on the radio, especially in the Bible Belt of America. But Chris believed in the song so much that he continued to fight for Katy. He was able to convince Dennis Reese, a radio guy, to give the record a shot, and this was truly their only shot. If it didn't go well, Katy was probably going to be dropped from her record label again. The first station to take a chance on Katy's single I Kissed a Girl was the River in Nashville, and with that, a star was officially born. But not without controversy. First, there was a music video released for the song, actually featuring a pre-release prescription client named Kesha Sebert in the background. The video wasn't too much, but it caused just enough fanfare to shoot I Kissed a Girl into every chat room, blog, and page that You're So Gay had already been shared on. But when the song started receiving radio play across the country, detractors banded together to destroy the song. The general public was split down the middle. Millions of people loved it and its subject matter and blasted it everywhere. However, there was a lot of criticism. Christian homeschool and conservative blogs alike were not happy with I Kissed a Girl being blasted across radio stations.
You allow Katy Perry to play on the highway, and she has taken you to hell right along with her, including millions of young women and young men who are listening to her videos.
Your background is that your parents are both ministers.
Yes.
And it's been widely reported that they are very upset about your song and about stuff that's going on. Now tell me, what's the reality here? What have they said, and how's the relationship? What's going on?
Well, they let me out this morning from the basement after they fed me the stale bread. Just kidding.
Did you have in mind that it might be a controversial, when you were thinking up the lyrics and you're recording the song, you must have known it was going to sort of put something out there. Did you expect
People
that?
don't even think it was an appropriate title for a song, content for a pop song.
I knew that I was showing the kind of tongue-in-cheek side of myself, and I knew that some people were going to get the joke and others would just love to be offended, but that's how some people live their lives.
I Kissed a Girl was a smash hit for Katy Perry and was her introduction to stardom. One of the Boys would debut to an astonishing 7 million copies worldwide, effectively taking over the pop world from 2007 to 2008. Hot and Cold would also take the world by storm, another booming Max Martin, Benny Blanco, Dr. Luke hit that would be certified 8 times platinum. Now, during the press tour for Hot and Cold, things would take a turn. Katy would perform a parody of the song with Elmo to teach the preschool Sesame Street audience antonyms. However, before airing on television, Sesame Street uploaded the clip on YouTube, and it would garner major criticism for Katy's costume choice. So much so that Sesame Street declined to even air the clip on the television broadcast after the backlash.
But it was pulled after a controversy erupted over what Perry was wearing.
Did it occur to you while she was there that she was wearing something inappropriate?
You know, if
If we had had a sweater on set, or maybe one of Bert's turtlenecks, might have changed the feedback a little bit.
We were gonna do dress up. You were gonna do dress up, and it looked to me, it looked innocent enough to me. Did you think
innocent enough? Elmo has no idea what you're talking about. We had a great time.
Afterwards, Katy would go on SNL to mock the entire ordeal in her Elmo shirt.
Maureen, what the hell happened to your shirt?
Well, the library told me to wear some looser fitting clothing.
To promote One of the Boys, Katy would embark on 2008's Warped Tour and subsequently her first solo world tour, the Hello Katy Tour. Shortly after this, she would open for No Doubt on their final tour in 2009. Katy would even go on to receive multiple awards and even her first 2 Grammy nominations. This was a major era for Katy, but it was only going to get bigger. During this time, the same producers from One of the Boys had an entirely new, spectacular, and jaw-dropping candy-coated concept for Katy Perry. And not only would it transform into a career-defining record, but it would also shatter several world records and be remembered as one of the most iconic pop eras in human history.
Katy Perry was now a breakthrough pop star who had a best-selling record and a huge world tour, but she didn't want to be a 2-hit wonder. Katy believed that this next project, if it didn't hit off even bigger than her last album, then it was all a fluke, and she wasn't meant to do this with her life. But if she could somehow eclipse her last album and turn herself into a global superstar, her entire life and career would change forever, and she would be cemented in the Pop Hall of Fame. Thus, she opted to, quote, definitely keep it pop, not to alienate her fan base, as her major hit songs were the pop records. So even though it's similar, Teenage Dream is considered quite a departure from One of the Boys. Katy would sit down after her Hello Katy tour in autumn of 2009 and record dozens and dozens of tracks with Dark Child, Ryan Tedder, Greg Kurstin, Esther Dean, and even some producers from her last project, like Max Martin, Benny Blanco, and Dr. Luke. Together with Katy Perry, this team of producers would create the most prolific American pop album in human history.
Teenage Dream by Katy Perry, a hit brought into being here at Hollywood's Conway Studios, thanks to an astonishing 182 different tracks, as Dr. Luke showed us on his computer.
The first thing that it started with was the guitars, for sure. Okay. She does all her backgrounds. You know, right. She does all of them. So, you know, I mean, the lead is just... But when you do a chorus, there's 3 right here that just give it...
You make me feel like I'm living a tea.
You know, and then later there's those harmonies.
Don't ever look back, don't ever look back. My heart stops.
We had a crowd of people.
Sure.
So we just kind of...
You brought everybody into the studio and just said...
You know...
Let it rock.
Oh, you know.
Just one touch.
So. There it is.
That's cool.
So I wrote Teenage Dream in Santa Barbara, which is my hometown, and I went down there with a couple of producers that I worked with on the first record, Max Martin and Dr. Luke, and I was there for 10 days. Literally, it probably took 4 or 5 different versions of the song. We had to rewrite the chorus of Teenage Dream until it felt like totally perfect, like it felt like it moved you and you wanted to kind of just release, let go, and dance and have that euphoric feeling of like having a teenage love all over again.
Sonically, Teenage Dream would have that signature pop rock vibe Dr. Luke and Max Martin were known for in the early 2000s, but it would also pioneer the pop genre and would feature elements of disco, dance, EDM, and pretty much everything in between. It was a true concept album sonically, and that's not even to mention the visual buffet of sweet candy and delicious desserts with an angsty storyline of coming into her stardom, finding love, and freedom through music. This album would cement Katy Perry as a pop icon. Will Cotton would be the artist behind the iconic album cover, which, yes, isn't actually a photo of Katy Perry, but rather a painting of fluffy pink cotton candy clouds encapsulating Katy Perry. During the album, she would go into themes from her childhood, but also create anthems for the entire world. At the time, Empire State of Mind was topping the Billboard charts with Alicia Keys and Jay-Z. And musically, it still is the first song that comes to mind when many people think about New York City. Katy had the brilliant idea of making an anthem for the girls in California, telling her A&R at Capitol Records at the time that she wanted to create a West Coast anthem that would boom across every radio station in the world.
The night before I had the idea, I saw all my friends raising their glasses at the party, singing Empire State of Mind, which is a great song, about New York in California. And I was feeling like this tinge of jealousy, and I felt like the Beach Boys, who I absolutely adore, and Tupac, which he did the original California song, which is California Love, they would hate that it would just be Empire State of Mind out there. New York has to be represented, but so does California, and so I felt like this would be a good kind of representation of who I am, and a very fun summer song from a female perspective, because there hasn't been a female perspective song about California just yet. And I wanted to add like little bits and pieces of Snoop Dogg, like sipping gin and juice in the verse, and Snoop Doggy Dogg on the stereo, so that hopefully he would come and be on the song, and it worked. It was one of the last songs that I got to write with Max Martin, Dr. Luke, and a couple other friends, Bonnie McKee and Benny Blanco. When I got California Girls finished, I was like, all right, I know that this is the first song that I can put out, and it's kind of like a fresh, fun drive-in to the beach, or at least like surfing the web, looking at pictures of the beach online. Either way, I was hoping that when you heard this song, you would want to book a ticket to California Sky.
For 10 days, Katy would take off to Santa Barbara with 2 producers from One of the Boys, Max Martin and Dr. Luke. Over the course of the 10-day trip, they wrote hit song after hit song, going over every chorus again and again to make sure the music made people want to get up and dance.
I named the album Teenage Dream because it's a song off the record that just makes you feel this euphoric feeling. When you're a kid, when you're a teenager and you're falling in love for the first time, or you have a fantasy about someone that you kind of idolize, like maybe it's a person or a poster on your wall that you grew up having on your wall, and you just like, maybe you wanted to meet them or be like them or like fall in love with them. Teenage Dream is kind of that feeling I wanted to exude off this record. Like, you know, it's just one of those songs and ideas for the album title that makes you feel like you're falling in love again for the first time. That's really important to me, because sometimes when you get older, you forget about that first time feeling, and it's really hard to like recreate that first time feeling. And so hopefully this record will make you fall in love all over again.
Now, Teenage Dream would end up being the title track of the record. Again, like many Dr. Luke-led projects, it raised controversy with its title, as an album called Teen Dream was already released very shortly before. However, Teenage Dream would be a mega success, and it would all start with an iTunes exclusive preview. See, previous to Beyonce's iconic digital drop when she stopped the world in 2013 with her surprise album, Billboard hits were primarily dependent on physical record sales. But Katy was ahead of the curve, releasing E.T., Circle the Drain, and Not Like the Movies all before the album was even available. The first single release would be California Girls, featuring Snoop Dogg, and it was a smash hit. Then, to build even more hype, Katy held a beach-themed listening party for her fans where she premiered the title track Teenage Dream. Katy was quoted by MTV at the time at the listening party saying, quote, "There's a lot of substance in this album, but also some no-brainers." She likened Last Friday Night and many of the party tracks to I Got a Feelin' by the Black Eyed Peas. The entire vibe of the album had highs and lows, but overall, it was a party. And Katy Perry was just getting started, being quoted at the listening party saying, "It looks like it's going to be a sleepless year. It's going to be really fun. I think we're going to do these types of things, especially for the fans. We're just starting to roll the record out. It's all beginning again. Although I don't feel like I'm back. I feel like it's a continuum." And thus, Katy Perry would roll out one of the most successful albums in American history, even becoming the only person alongside Michael Jackson to send 5 #1 hit singles to the top of the Billboard charts. From just one album album with California Girls, Teenage Dream, Firework, E.T., and Last Friday Night. Katy telling Billboard, quote, "Hitting #1 is always a great moment, but when it turns into a small piece of history, you're reminded of how many millions of people are connected to each other by even one tiny event. Thank you to everyone who helped make this happen. Ever since I was 9 years old, singing into my hairbrush, I've dreamed very big dreams, but today is bigger than my dreams." And so were the visuals for Teenage Dream. From the music videos to the tour, Katy Perry would submerge cartoon-like images of candies and desserts into a complete Teenage Dream confection. From the iconic California Dreams to her cotton candy cloud screens to her cupcake and peppermint bras, Katy Perry would make memorable moment after memorable moment, truly defining what it means to create a complete era. Katy Perry would embark on a record-shattering 124-day tour across the world to promote Teenage Dream, simultaneously filming one of the greatest and most prolific pop music documentaries of all time, proving the 2011 American public's hunger for concert documentaries and creating a blueprint that we can still see being replicated today. The Teenage Dream era was huge, and Katy would launch on a rocket ride of success she couldn't even dream up in her wildest teenage dream. Now, unfortunately, with this newfound fame would come loss, heartbreak, and betrayal that Katy would have to face. She would see some of her darkest days on the California Dreams tour, having to create a strong face for everyone, sharing so much light in everyone else's lives, only to be faced with her own darkness behind the scenes. At the end of the day, all alone.
Now, amidst the California Dreams tour, a number of prolific events happened in Katy's life. First, her family took major stances against her. They were already put off by I Kissed a Girl, preaching at their sermons that they didn't approve, and that their daughter was unfortunately doomed for eternal damnation. Katy's father proclaiming, "I kissed God and I liked it."
Wait, but why does that sound a little... Never mind.
Katy Perry's preacher father is on tour of churches throughout the country with one simple message, reportedly. Katy Perry is the devil. In a strange twist of sermons, he's telling people to pray for Katy. He says, "I was at a concert of Katy's where there were 20,000. They were there going at it. It looked almost like church. They're worshiping the wrong thing." Why would you have a problem with people worshiping your daughter? He said, "People ask me how I can preach when I raised a daughter who kissed a girl." Now, is it that she kissed the girl or is it that she liked it?
Katy's dad and mom are currently touring churches nationwide as guest speakers. Instead of praising their daughter and celebrating her accomplishments, a source says they want to try to heal her. And Katy's parents reportedly asked for donations. They say not $1 or $2, but 20s.
Now let's go back to the year prior where she went mega public with her new boyfriend Russell Brand, who her parents also publicly disapproved of, saying they love them, but then following it up with an awful statement about them going to hell. Katy, however, braved the storm, even opting to feature her parents in a very real but somewhat positive light in her Part of Me film. Now, aside from the Part of Me film showing somewhat of her childhood and her relationship with her parents, it would also see the rise and fall of her and Russell Brand's tumultuous relationship. The couple had originally met during a cutscene from Get Him to the Greek in 2008, where Katy and Russell would do a cameo together. Katy said, quote, "My scene called for me to make out with him. And on the way down the stairs after the scene, I was hopping like a little bunny. I hop like a bunny when I'm happy. I get a bit childlike. He gives me the Christmas Eve jitters." Now that scene would give Katy the courage to make her first move at the VMAs, They would begin dating at the tail end of 2009, and in January of 2010, after just 4 months of dating, they got engaged. Fast forward to October of 2010, and they would get married in a Hindu ceremony of Russell's choosing. Now, during the release of Teenage Dream, Katy and Russell's relationship would be documented across the tabloids. Just a little over a year after getting married in December of 2011, it was being reported that things with Russell weren't as peachy as they appeared to be on the exterior. Russell wanted to be with Katy all the time, but Katy was tired from touring because of just how massive the California Dreams tour was. So he would go on to announce that they are getting a divorce.
Where's Katy Perry?
Up about that! God, I'm living like this life. The very thing that I detest. Vapid, vacuous celebrity. Fame, power, money is bullshit.
I don't want to give all this up.
Argument occurring.
This is stupid!
After 14 months of marriage, Brand filed for divorce.
I've got to live a different life now.
Katy received notice of this by text at one of her Teenage Dream shows, and she completely broke down in tears. Her entire life with Russell, the future she had imagined for days upon days, was over. She cried, she let it out, and she pulled herself together in one of the most impressive professional acts a pop star has ever been caught doing on camera.
I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. So she feels depressed. Yeah. Oh, look, we have a trinkets box.
Oh, that's not meant to make you upset. It's a necklace that she got for her birthday from Russell, and the day after she got it, she lost it at the venue.
You have two options. You can cancel the show, or you can do your best.
Start, Todd.
Everybody, here we go. Stand by outside. Stand by on.
Katy rose to heights only possible in the 2010s, dominating the world with her multiple eras from Teenage Dream to her next hit album, Prism, even besting Lady Gaga in the Stan Twitter Pop Smackdown of 2013, which let us know if y'all want a video on that. Roar versus Applause was historic. Anyway, Katy would produce multiple #1s from Prism and even embark on a Prismatic World Tour, ending it at the 2015 Super Bowl with one of the greatest performances the NFL has ever seen. Katy Perry is historically one of the greatest pop stars, being able to entrance and encapsulate generations upon generations of consumers. Many pop stars have shocked the world. Some have rose to heights unimaginable. Some have changed the way we interact and listen to music. But one thing's for certain, no artist came out of the blue with an era quite like Teenage Dream. Katy is still one of the highest ranked musicians in the world and has parlayed her role as a judge on American Idol, doing her duty and sewing back into the music industry, and went on to do a massive Vegas residency. She was able to eventually find love with actor Orlando Bloom, who she now has a beautiful family with. So that's the story of Katy Perry as told by Deep Dive. Be sure to check out our other videos on various pop eras. See y'all in the next one.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Shelby, and this was Deep Dive. Bye.